Hello, thank you everyone. Thanks a lot for taking the time out. I appreciate it's peak lunch hour, so it's very appreciative for all of you to be here. As mentioned, my name is Rory McDaid. I'm a Managing Director at Henley & Partners in Singapore, and today we're going to be looking at the great ultra-high net worth migration. Just before we get started, if you do have any questions, sorry, I'll just put it back. If you do have any questions through the presentation, please feel free to scan the QR code for Slido, and then we'll answer those at the end. But ultimately, in terms of Henley, a quick introduction. Henley & Partners are the global leader within citizenship and residency by investment. That means that we're helping high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals invest into certain countries, and through that investment, they obtain a residency or a citizenship. We've been around for close to 30 years. We now have more than 70 offices globally, and we've raised more than 15 billion in FDI for various governments around the world. But at the core, there are two key parts to the business. Number one is private client advisory, which I'm a part of. That's everything from onboarding clients, managing the entire process, A to Z, until ultimately those families come out the other side with a new citizenship or residency. The second part of the business is really what makes Henley unique, and that's our government advisory team. So we strategically advise governments globally in terms of creating, structuring, implementing, and marketing these programs. As I mentioned, 70 offices globally, Singapore being our Asia HQ, but offices throughout the region. There's been a lot of new office opening, growth, and expansion over the past couple of years, and that's really due to the exponential growth and demand for our services globally. And I can get into the reason why that's the case a bit later on in the presentation. But I also wanted to share some findings from the Henley Private Wealth Migration Report. This is our flagship report that is released on an annual basis, usually at the end of Q2. And in short, it's tracking the movement of millionaires. What countries are they leaving, and where are they moving to? So the 2025 results, there will be a record amount of migration among the high net worth community. 142,000 will be leaving one jurisdiction and moving to another. And when we say that, that is a physical relocation and spending more than 6 months per year in that new country. The biggest net beneficiary, the UAE, in terms of net millionaire inflows. And for the first time ever, the UK is set to see the biggest net millionaire outflows globally. Just to give you a high-level overview of those numbers, you can see the UK really dominating the infographic behind me, set to lose 16,500 high net worth individuals in 2025. This is an unprecedented and record number that we have ever seen since we started collating this data in terms of outflow of wealth from one individual country. In second place, in terms of outflows of wealth, China. And number one in terms of inflows, the UAE, with the US in second place. Just to look at the historical data in terms of movement of millionaires, we can right back to 2013 since we started collating this data. And you can see the difference from 2013 up until 2025. There is almost a 300% increase in terms of the amount of millionaires that are on the move. Ultimately, high net worth individuals want to be based in jurisdictions where they're treated the best. The best will mean different things to different individuals and families. It might mean safety, security. It might be a tax angle, or it might be to open up opportunities for the family or the children moving forward. But ultimately, this marks the largest voluntary transfer of private capital in modern history, 2025. And this isn't just a demographic shift. Ultimately, this will have huge global economic implications as well, as you'd probably be aware of. Now, to look at the countries seeing the top millionaire inflows for 2025. As mentioned, the UAE sitting in first place. Also interesting to note, if you look at the top right-hand side of the slide, the UAE almost doubling the amount of resident millionaires over the past 10 years. The country's popular for a lot of the reasons that I'm sure we're all very familiar with. A low-tax jurisdiction, very strategically located, plenty of opportunities around employment and business, world-class institutions when it comes to healthcare and education. The US in second place. It might come as a surprise to some of you with all of the fairly interesting and crazy stories we see coming out of the US recently, but still an incredibly popular place for high net worth individuals to be based. The #1 wealth hub globally, the #1 economy globally, of course, as well, and that presents a range of opportunities for anyone who's resident in the US. The global financial hub on the East Coast, the global tech hub on the West Coast, and the US is still seen very much as the gold standard when it comes to education. The countries in third and fourth place, Italy and Switzerland, both really benefiting off the back of the outflows coming out of the UK. Of course, both beautiful places to be based in terms of culture, lifestyle, and climate, but more importantly, both have lump sum taxation policies. So for those individuals who've been leaving the UK and are looking for more tax-efficient structures, but to stay in Europe, Italy and Switzerland have been making a lot of sense. Singapore in sixth place, set to see 1,600 high net worth individuals coming into the country this year. This is around about a 50% drop-off compared to the numbers that we've seen in 2023 and 2024. And there's a couple of reasons for that. #1, Singapore really seen a spike in activity post-COVID, particularly when China opened its borders. A lot of high net worth Chinese families moving into Singapore, setting up family offices, incorporating companies, sending their kids to school here, and ultimately obtaining Singaporean residency. The second point is that things have become a bit more difficult in Singapore in terms of obtaining residency and also obtaining permanent residency. The thresholds are constantly being increased. Comparing that to somewhere like the UAE, although both countries at various stages of their economic development, the UAE has a range of very accessible pathways to become a resident. If you want to obtain a UAE golden visa, for example, you can invest slightly over 500,000 US, either into property or as a fixed deposit with a local Emirati bank. That gets you a 10-year golden visa in the UAE and full residency rights there. Comparing that to Singapore, if you want to go via their investment migration route, the Global Investment Program, it's fairly difficult. And the Economic Development Board of Singapore have been gradually increasing the threshold to be able to qualify for that. It now starts at 10 million Singapore dollars. If you want to make an investment into a government-approved venture capital fund, it starts at 25 million Singapore dollars. So you can see the differences between Singapore and some of the more easily accessible investment migration programs globally. Also important to note that each of the 10 countries that you've seen on the previous slide all host investment migration programs. Now, only about 30% of the individuals who are relocating are using investment migration as the means to do that. The remaining 70% are using general immigration pathways. But one thing we can say is for countries who are hosting investment migration programs, they're putting themselves front and center for high net worth individuals to have an extremely efficient and streamlined pathway to obtain a residency in their countries. The country's set to see the biggest net millionaire outflows in 2025. The UK, as I've mentioned, unprecedented numbers since we have started collating this data. And also compounding issues for the UK is what you can see on the top right-hand side of the screen. The millionaire growth rate over the past decade has actually contracted by nearly 10%. Why is this happening? There's a range of reasons. We can go right back to Brexit in 2016. I think it could be unanimously accepted it wasn't a good economic move, at least for the UK. Second of all, political instability. The UK went through a period of having 4 prime ministers within the space of 18 months. But most recently, and what's having the most impact, are tax changes, particularly the scrapping of the UK non-dom tax status, a hugely unpopular move among high net worth individuals who were domiciled in the UK. And in short, they're voting with their feet. The country in second place, China, set to lose 7,800. This is a bit of a success story for China, believe it or not. China has been #1 for 10 consecutive years in the report in terms of net millionaire outflows. And this is a 50% drop-off rate of the numbers that they lost last year. So in China, things seem to be stabilizing, and they seem to be coming out of their post-COVID economic hangover. Other countries to note that didn't quite make the top 10 in terms of net millionaire inflows. Hong Kong bouncing back after 6 consecutive years of being in negative territory. Hong Kong's really benefited off the back of the growth and boom that we've seen across the border in Shenzhen and Hangzhou. A lot of the high net worth individuals who've made their money there are now deciding to make Hong Kong their base. Thailand really establishing itself as the second wealth hub in the region after Singapore. A lot of wealthy Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese families deciding to make Thailand their base. Thailand also has a very attractive and accessible investment migration program, the Thai LTR. It also comes with really beneficial tax structures, which have been hugely attractive for a lot of high net worth individuals in the region. Countries that didn't quite make the top 10 that are set to see net millionaire outflows. In Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines, all in negative territory. The high net worth individuals that have been leaving Vietnam have predominantly been moving into Thailand, the US, Canada, and Australia. In the Middle East, we have Lebanon, Iran, and Pakistan due to various domestic political issues and regional geopolitical tensions. A lot of high net worth individuals and families leaving those countries, and the UAE has really been the big beneficiary of those. You might ask, why would clients want to obtain an alternative residency? 4 of the key reasons that you can see behind me. Taxes are a key theme. Ultimately, by obtaining an alternative residency, clients can move into a more tax-efficient jurisdiction. Education has been a massive growth area for the business over the past couple of years, so much so that we've actually set up Henley & Partners Education, fully staffed by ex-education professionals, teachers, headmasters, tutors, mentors, and admissions professionals. And what they're able to do is help the children of our clients get access to the best schools globally. Why would clients want to obtain an alternative citizenship? Again, 4 of the key reasons here. One that I would highlight that's very relevant to the region is visa waivers and mobility. Outside of Singapore and Malaysia, we're sitting in a region that are holding very restrictive passports. Restrictive in terms of travel. Most nationalities in the region would have to get a visa each time that they travel, and obviously that's not ideal for a high net worth family. They want to be able to travel wherever they want, whenever they want. But also restrictive in terms of potential future relocation, expanding their business outside of their home country, or getting their children access to the best schools globally, all heavily impacted just by the passport that they hold. So by obtaining an alternative citizenship, that would alleviate a lot of those issues for the families that are able to obtain that. I also wanted to give a quick overview of the different trends that we've seen over the past 7 or 8 years. When I first joined Henley in 2017, 2018, the vast majority of the clientele and the inquiries that we were seeing were coming from emerging Asian countries. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. In Southeast Asia, Indonesia, the Philippines, China, of course, and they are still very much key markets for us. However, what you will notice is the growth and demand coming from Western developed states. So much so that our biggest source of clients last year, on a nationality basis, were US citizens. And that will most definitely be replicated in 2025. In 4th place, UK citizens. 2 very different stories at play within these 2 markets. In the US, the vast majority of our clientele aren't relocating, but they're pretty concerned about various issues in the US, whether it's political, economic, or social issues, and they're obtaining an alternative residency or citizenship as a hedge against those issues. That if their own personal worst-case scenario were to come to fruition, they've got an exit strategy. The UK, as you can see from the previous slides, a very different dynamic at play. UK nationals who are obtaining alternative residencies and citizenships are very much doing it with the plans to relocate within the short to medium term. Ultimately, one of the key trends that we've seen is one of domicile diversification. Clients are now treating residency and citizenship as they would their investment portfolio. They're hedging and they're spreading their risk. They're investing into multiple different asset classes in various different regions of the world in multiple different currency denominations. And through that, they're building up a portfolio of alternative residencies and citizenships that is ultimately future-proofing their family. And I'll just finish on the final slide. These are the 40 or so countries in which we can help. Each country really has its own pros and cons, so it's important for us to sit down with clients at the first stage, find out why they're thinking of this, what their motivation is, and then we can put a strategy in place that meets the requirements that they have outlined. But that's everything from me, folks. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Well, that was quite depressing from a British point of view. Does anyone have any questions for Rory? Okay, you've got one on Slido. Someone saying, how do you actually get the information?
Yeah, good question. So we work with a data analytics company called New World Wealth. They're tracking everything that I have already mentioned in terms of the movement of millionaires, tax residency, primary home, various other metrics that are able to be very specific in terms of where those millionaires are.
And I guess one other question. If you were looking for a place to relocate to, where would you choose?
Well, look, I'm very happy in Singapore, so I'll stay here as long as Lawrence Wong will have me, so no plans of relocating. And I'm very lucky that I've got an Irish passport, so I've got the 4th strongest passport globally. For any Singaporeans in the room, you'll probably know you're holding the strongest passport globally. If I was to do a program, it would probably be the UAE. I've mentioned the strengths of the UAE, very low barrier to entry in the grand scheme of things, slightly over $500,000 US into property in the UAE. And also with that, you can rent it out, you can put it on Airbnb, you'll be receiving a rental return. Obviously, the property market in the UAE has been going through the roof. And this doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to Dubai. I know Dubai always gets a lot of the attention in the UAE, but we see now a lot of families that aren't so comfortable in Dubai, and they would go to Abu Dhabi, for example, where it's a bit more family-friendly for a lot of our clientele. But due to the structure of the program, yes, my choice would be the UAE.
We've got a question going, is there any indication that the UK government is concerned about the outflow?
Yeah, I mean, we read, for those of you who read the UK media, you always see certain rumors that they might be pulling back on the tax implications that Rachel Reeves announced around about 6 months ago in the budget. And there's also a budget on the horizon, so let's see exactly what happens. I think the UK need to be in a position to attract more high net worth individuals to actually relocate in. So the UK don't have an investment migration program. High net worth individuals are really interested in the UK and getting access to the UK, but there is no pathway. They have to go in via general immigration, find a job, get the equivalent of an employment visa, spend time in the UK, become a UK taxpayer. The benefit of investment migration is clients put quite a large amount of capital into that country, but there's no strings attached. They don't really have to spend a lot of time there. And I think if the UK brought something back, they previously had something called the Tier 1 investor visa that they had to scrap off the back of Russia, Ukraine. But if they brought that back in some sort of format, I think that would be a real boost.
I fly on British Airways quite a lot, and every time you watch a movie, you get an ad telling you to take out citizenship of St. Nevis or something. So obviously it's working for them.
It is, yeah. As you can see, huge demand coming out of the UK.
Brilliant, that was really interesting. Thanks so much, Rory. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Oh, do we have a question? Sorry, we've got a question.
You was talking about the UAE. Well, most of the countries you mentioned, when you invest, they give you a passport nationality.
Correct.
Only UAE will not give you passport national.
A lot of countries won't give you a passport. So most Middle Eastern countries, Thailand won't give you a passport. So there's various countries that are very restrictive.
So it's not like...
It's residency. It's a golden visa,
I know,
10 years.
Yeah, but they can change that anytime.
So it's given for 10 years, and it is renewable. Now, if they move the goalposts and you get to the end of the 10-year threshold and they slightly increase the barometer, you will have to inject an extra bit of capital.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
as long as you push the money, you're safe. But
You're safe for 10 years under the current
after
regulations. Yeah, I mean, it's always, we live in a very volatile time, so we can never guarantee exactly what format it's going to be in 10 years' time. So we'll have to see how things pan out. One thing I would say about the UAE is that they're trying to attract as much wealth into the country as possible, trying to double the population of Dubai and all of these grand plans. So to have the structure that they have at the moment makes sense. But again, it's very hard to predict what might be in place in 10 years' time in any country.
another part is the real estate.
Yeah.
It's not very stable there because every 4 years you see the very crazy hype, and after that, crazy drop.
Yeah, very true. I'm not a real estate guy, but obviously I keep in touch in terms of what's happening in the UAE. That's another reason that clients are now looking at Abu Dhabi and Ras Al Khaimah in the north, where they're building the massive Wynn casino, and there might be more of a long-term upside. So ultimately, it depends what the client is looking for.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Rory. I'm going to let whoever's asking you in the room who's thinking about retiring to Monaco become a client of Henley & Partners. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks a lot, everyone. Great. Thanks a lot. Thank you.